Working Fans Podcast. Cool.
Yep.
All right, here we go. Coming down 3, 2.
Welcome back for another week of the Working Fans Podcast. This is AJ. I'm the former wrestler. We've got Dave, the ultimate fan, here with us as we do every week. Our producer Joe likes to make us sound good and makes us look way more professional than we actually are. As always, you can find us on Twitter, that's @FansWorking, Facebook, Working Fans Pod. We've got email where you can reach out to us and please contact us to let us know what you think of the podcast and for any ideas that you might have. That's workingfanswrestlingpod@gmail.com. We're on Instagram where you can keep up with us at workingfanswrestling_pod. And then you can now listen to us on all major platforms, including Anchor.fm. We're on Google Podcasts, Spotify, Breaker, Overcast, Pocket Casts, Radio Public, Apple Podcasts, and you can actually check us out on YouTube. Now, it's important when you go onto the Apple Podcasts and YouTube, hit that subscribe button, give us a rating, let us know what you think so you can help us out and we can continue to do what we love and bring you guys in as fans.
Welcome to the 531, where we take our top 5 list on a particular subject, debate it down to a top 3, and then debate it down to a top 1. We got a list from Randy this week, and I gotta say, I hate the shit out of this topic. We're talking about theoretical matchups. We're talking about your dream matchups. It's a good conversation starter, but when you're doing something like the 5-3-1 where you're comparing and you're taking similar things to move on, it's absolute bullshit fit into this format. But we want to thank Randy for sending it in, and we assembled our lists anyways.
Easy there, brother. I want to talk about this for a second. First off, thank you, Randy. Sorry, Joe, went a little hard on the paint on your ass. But it is hard to assemble all this stuff, as we said.
We're comparing apples and oranges, literally.
Yeah, because, I mean, any of these fucking combinations could work with multiple combinations. There's so many people out there that if you're a true hardcore fan of this, you're going to make this list and go, oh yeah, I forgot about this motherfucker.
Yeah, even lists that we got multiple honorable mentions. And like I said, it's a very good discussion starter. We've got the most response from fans ever. Let's get into our list first.
Let's get into it, baby.
Let's start with Scott from Valentine.
Valentine, I love that kid.
First time list, he's got Naito versus Mr. Perfect, Zack Sabre Jr. versus Daniel Bryan, Brock Lesnar versus Minoru Suzuki, Tomohiro Ishii versus Samoa Joe, and Kobashi versus Walter in a battle of the chops. That's a major list right there. Naito versus Perfect.
Yeah.
I would have loved to have seen that.
Yeah, he's got a good list here. God damn. I mean, I'm not as familiar with Kobashi other than those brutal chops. And, just the idea of him and Walter just beating the shit out of each other. Ugh.
Yeah, that would be a solid match. Now, we got a list from Matt Jordan from Parts Unknown. Matt, let us know where you're at on Twitter.
Yeah.
His list is Charlotte Flair versus Chyna, Kurt Angle versus Matt Riddle, Brock Lesnar versus Vader, Goldust versus Velveteen Dream, and the Brainbusters versus the Revival.
It's interesting.
Solid list. I mean, Brainbusters versus Revival, that is one of the few matches I'm not surprised it popped up on multiple lists, but I didn't expect for anybody to have any similar matches, and that's one.
Spoiler here, Lesnar doesn't make my list, but he's one of these guys. I've seen him on a couple of these lists here already. He's a guy, to me, I just listened to John Cena have an interview, and he had a comment where Lesnar's performance at the Rumble, to him, he showed what a great worker he is and what an underrated worker he is and how he put over his legitimacy. He put over the people in the ring with him, even only for a few seconds. He said the way he makes everything so real that he thinks Brock is one of the best workers of all time. And people don't say that, but if you think about it, the stuff this guy can do, I'll give you an example. In my mind, Ultimate Warrior as a kid, one of my favorites. The music, everything, the theme of his energy. But I didn't put him on any dream matches because I know Warrior can't really work, and as I got older, it just doesn't hold up.
You saw all the combinations you needed to with it.
But if you put Brock versus the Warrior, Brock would make that work, I think. I think he would make that short. He would give Warrior what he needed to go do, and it could make it work. I'm not saying it would, but I think he could. Now, however, if you take Goldberg, who I also like Goldberg, and put him in that same match with Ultimate Warrior, It's not going to fucking work at all. I'd be shocked if it did. And that's the difference with Brock Lesnar, where he doesn't get the credit sometimes of these other guys. Brock is a big, strong animal, but the motherfucker can work. I'm going on a rant. Sorry, go ahead.
And him versus Vader, that would be a hard-hitting match.
In their prime, they would have beat the shit out of each other.
Goldust versus Velveteen Dream, another solid matchup.
Yeah.
We're going to move on to Sheaf's list. He's got Shawn Michaels versus Eddie Guerrero, Bret Hart versus Kurt Angle, Brock Lesnar versus Vader, Funk versus Moxley. I strongly considered putting that on my list.
That's a good one.
And Revival versus Brainbusters.
Yeah, it's very interesting.
Another solid list. You get kind of the view of maybe what somebody... He's 10 years younger than us, but his list stays almost within, I'd say, everybody's sensibilities.
Yeah, the true greats don't age sometimes. So the work holds up. Terry Funk is a guy that hasn't worked in years, really. And, I mean, obviously he's done his, indie stuff here and there. And obviously he wrestled late into his career. But, if you think about when Funk was last relevant, but yet that work still holds fucking up. So,
they would put on a brutal match.
Yeah, good stuff is good stuff.
Zach gave us a list this week. He has Shawn Michaels versus Kenny Omega, Bret Hart versus Kurt Angle, Michael Cole versus Shawn Michaels, Bret Hart versus Okada, and Will Ospreay versus Rollins.
I'm going to stop you right there, brother. Respect you. Glad you're back. But I don't think that's Michael Cole. I think that's Adam Cole.
Oh, did I say Michael Cole?
You did?
Oh, that's Cole. Cole versus Michaels, and I fucked it up.
That's all right.
And Michael Cole. So,
oh my!
Holy shit! That's a solid list. Jake also sent us a list
Zach. Anyway.
with Shawn Michaels versus AJ Styles, Shawn Michaels versus Adam Cole, Taz versus Minoru Suzuki, Daniel Bryan versus Pete Dunne, and he's got the Young Bucks and the Rockers on his list.
Yes, he does.
He also sent us a separate tag team list, which I want to get into because that's going to kind of morph into my list, where I actually started my list off with a tag team. But we got the Hart Foundation versus the Revival.
Good shit.
The Bucks versus the Rockers. Red Dragon versus the Brainbusters. Red Dragon being Kyle O'Reilly and Bobby Fish.
Yep.
Brainbusters versus the Revival. And Hollywood Blondes versus the Briscoes from ROH.
I also think he wanted him and his brother to wrestle the Briscoes on a bonus match that he thought would be good stuff.
All right, so we're just... That's automatically going to get seeded into one of the top spots, right?
Jake, we let you get yourself over a little bit, bro. I mentioned it, but that's not going any further.
All right, so my list... I started out with American Alpha versus the Steiner Brothers, Teddy Hart versus Owen Hart. At first, I had Benoit versus the Dynamite Kid, but when I heard Suzuki on Jake's list, I put Benoit versus Suzuki, Tessa Blanchard versus Shayna Baszler, and I had Matt Riddle versus Brock, because that's one of those dream matches that's out there enough where it's a possibility, but they say it's not going to happen.
Jesse from New Hampshire, his list of top 5 dream matches, which were The Rock versus HBK, Austin versus Hogan. He had a couple interesting ones here. Eddie Guerrero versus Penta.
Wow.
This one, I think you're going to love. You had almost something similar. He had Moxley. You'll explain your list in a minute. I don't want to spoil it. He had Moxley versus Eddie Gilbert.
Oh, I like that one.
I thought you would. And then this one, I think, I don't know necessarily that, you're going to pop for it, but boy, I could really see it once he said it. Bruno Sammartino versus Walter.
Wow. Yeah, I can see that one.
Yeah, it just makes sense. The minute he said it, I was like, you know what? I don't know if I'm clamoring for that, but I get that match, and I wouldn't mind seeing that. And what about, a couple Bears, Bruno back in his prime, and then Walter. It would have been something to watch.
Oh, no, it would have been fascinating. Yeah, Bruno in his prime was built very similar to Walter also, so.
Yeah, agreed. Now, what do you have for a list?
I started off with Terry Funk versus Bray Wyatt,
Would have been good.
which I realized still could happen.
I don't know about that, but yeah.
Andre versus Brock.
Yeah, Randy had that one, I remember.
I just think it would have been interesting to see, and I'm not talking about Andre, obviously late WWE where he could barely move and was hanging on the ropes. I mean a young Andre who could actually move and bump his ass off.
Yeah, no, I know what you mean. And Brock, who could probably lift him in ways that Andre wouldn't have been used to.
That's what I'm saying. Midnight Express versus the Revival.
I wondered. Yeah, Revival made the list a few times, actually.
I saw Revival versus Iron and Tully on other people's lists.
Yeah, Revival versus Hart Foundation, Revival versus Rockers, Revival versus Bucks, I think.
Yeah, there's definitely some interesting matchups for the Revival. The Revival versus Bucks could still very much happen.
They could, yes.
And then we saw this match, but I would have liked to have seen this match with Flair in his prime. Flair versus Angle. I think Ric Flair versus Angle in Flair's prime would have been a much different match, and I think would have been absolutely incredible for 60 minutes.
You know what's funny? For all of Ric Flair's greatness, he didn't make my top 5 dream matches, and I said one of the reasons why is because I had seen so many Flair dream matches already.
Yeah, exactly. But a lot of it is Flair later in his career in the dream matches.
True, and the thing is, like what Joe talked about, like the hard thing with dream matches as a subject is there's so many combinations of people, and you can do it, and then you're going to be like, oh, I forgot to add that guy.
Well, then, in my last one is one that might have already happened in WCW, and I'm sure some internet genius out there is going to go, well, I'm sure this one happened in the fall of '97.
I like the sincerity of internet genius. Go ahead, please.
Yes, to me, the late 90s was not the prime of Mr. Perfect. Don't get me wrong, he was having decent matches, but I would have liked to have seen the Mr. Perfect from like 1988-89 versus Eddie Guerrero.
Yeah, I don't know if that match took place, but that would have been a good one. I had Eddie Guerrero versus Ricky Steamboat.
That's a good one too. I just think that with the way that Mr. Perfect had character and the way Eddie's character was, that they would have played well off of each other, especially heel versus heel, as compared to Steamboat, who had the personality of a soap dispenser.
Steamboat had a little more to that, but I know what you're saying. A little too hard in the paint on Ricky, all right?
No. Ricky's one of the greatest wrestlers of all time, but he was one of the greatest wrestlers of all time.
Yeah, but I mean, he could cut a promo. He just wasn't like one of... You're talking about, unfortunately, he was in a promo era where you had everybody could cut a good promo, too, though.
Yeah, he's also more of the Benoit promo. He was more of the intense fire and brimstone promo than he was the personality promo.
One of the ones I had was Mr. Perfect versus Kurt Angle.
Yeah, I like that one. And that's another one, once again, where it could have happened, but I would have loved to have seen Perfect in his prime versus Kurt Angle.
Absolutely. All right. Anything else you want to add on these dream matches?
No, I think that everybody's dream matches are really good. And the fact of the matter is, it's matches that we wish that we could have seen or could have seen earlier in someone's career. And it brings us back to what brings us a fan. And while this was one of the hard ones for us to do, great topic by Randy Osgood, because quite frankly, it's something that we're all passionate about.
That's so funny. Joe hated having to do this, but he hated having to, like, put it together, so I get it.
Yeah.
Dave, if you want to give us your list, and then we'll end with Randy's list since this is his topic.
Make sure we didn't forget him. All right. Here's my list. And, you know, I could go on, and I had, like, I think 11 of these, and that was just kind of spitballing. This is a real tough thing for me. So there's a lot of people I'm forgetting. Like, I had Benoit on my list at one point versus Daniel Bryan, and he's not on the list anymore just because I had changed my mind.
Are you saying something off the record about his legacy should top anything else he's done? I thought that you might have said something about that.
No, I think that might be one of
Whoa. We won't worry about who said it, but just know that it was edited out of a conversation at some point.
Yeah.
AJ, we're looking at you.
We won't say who said it. But
all right, Dave, what's your list now that we just spent time?
I want to write one shout out to one dream match, because a lot of my list, I really had like certain technical wrestlers and main event guys. These guys might not.
Billy Robinson?
Yeah, Billy Robinson on my list. Slick Willie, as I used to call him. This guy's made my list. Didn't make my list, but I thought it'd be an interesting matchup that I'd never heard of or seen. So just a shout out, I would have liked to seen Jushin Thunder Liger versus Dynamite Kid. I mean, I just think that those styles would have made an epic match. At the end of the day, here's my top 5, all right? And it ain't Slick Willie Robinson, I'm sorry.
I feel like that match has happened at some point.
Maybe it has, but like I'm looking at the timeline.
That's the tough part with some of these dream matches is we don't fucking know when they happen. I don't got all the time in the world. I'm doing MLW notes. You'll hear the episode.
This motherfucker's working on this for 3 years. It's a goddamn dream. Court Bauer needs to give him a job. Yo, Court. All right. This list is a pain in the ass. I'm sorry, Randy. Joe has already told me off the air. Other than his father passing away this week, this is the hardest fucking thing he had to go through. And it's because of you. We might have to edit that out, too.
Let's do it. Can we just get you?
Okay. All right. Here's my list.
That is 100% stated.
Bret Hart versus Daniel Bryan. Two of my favorites. Bret's my favorite wrestler of all time. Daniel Bryan's actually my favorite wrestler today. One thing I haven't heard on this list yet is, I think I missed it and I spaced out because I'm an idiot. CM Punk versus HBK. I think their styles would make an excellent matchup.
Michaels has come up several times, but Punk not once.
No, and I think he's definitely underrated. Eddie Guerrero and Ricky Steamboat. We haven't had Steamboat, I think, on this list yet either. How do we not? You know, Eddie Guerrero versus Ricky Steamboat, that would have been an absolute classic.
You know why? Because there's such a list of top-level wrestlers.
Oh, yeah.
And then you want to think of the people, you come up with dream matches. Have they wrestled them? Was I not aware of it?
And that's the thing. Ric Flair is one of the greatest wrestlers of all times. He has so many dream matches already. So he didn't make my list because I can't think of many matches that Flair hasn't
Exactly,
had.
yeah.
I mean, don't get me wrong, I could, but it just, you know. Owen Hart versus AJ Styles. I just think Owen would have ended up being one of the all-time best, and he was one of the all-time best.
And we had a similar thought with you having him versus AJ and me having him versus Teddy. I think if you put Owen against that kind of high flyer and that kind of showman, it would have brought it out of him, and it just would have been a top-level match.
Absolutely. There's a lot of people, like, you know, Tully got included with Iron in tag matches, but like Tully Blanchard versus like Eddie Guerrero. I mean, I didn't include that. I'm just saying, like, there's guys that were like top level guys that aren't going to make our list because there's just too much here. There's too much. And so, last match I ended up I put on my list was Kurt Angle versus Mr. Perfect Kurt Hennig. Best of my knowledge, they never met, and I think that would have been an awesome match in both their primes.
Very much so.
Oh, and one shout out. We didn't get a top 5, but Kristen from Griswold also, he didn't make the list. He didn't get a time, but he did say one match he would have liked to see was John Cena versus Okada. Not many people are going to put John Cena on this list, but if you think about it, John's had a lot of top matches too. A matchup with him versus Okada. I'm not saying it would make any of my lists, but it would definitely be up there.
To me, that feels almost like it would be the Hogan Flair of this generation, to some degree.
Yeah, I agree.
Now we've gone through all our top 5 lists. There have been a couple names that have popped up multiple times. Lesnar versus Vader, Shawn Michaels versus Adam Cole, and Hart versus Angle popped up a couple times. Michaels versus Styles, also on a couple lists.
And the Brain Busters versus the Revival.
That popped up on a couple lists.
Yeah.
So
it's hard, man.
Yeah, because usually what we do at this point is we'll take what's made the most amount of lists and move on.
We're lucky we got this many people agreed on.
Yeah, I picked 2 that we had that have matched up. There have been a couple that we're not including. Dave, looking at this list, who would you give that 3rd spot to? I'm open to pretty much anything. Like I said, this is a hard list to kind of steer this segment.
So we got Lesnar, Vader, and who was the other one?
Shawn Michaels versus Adam Cole, which to me, I almost would put that as the dream match because now that Cole is learning from Michaels, he's picking up a lot of that.
Yeah, with Vader and Lesnar, you get something different. If we were throwing a card together, we're not, though. But if we were throwing a card together with this match, I'd say throw Lesnar Vader in there because it's a little different than what we have already over here.
Yeah, because you got 2 athletic.
But that's not what we're doing.
No.
So we're just talking about dream matches. So Michaels and Cole is the clear winner to me. No offense against that other match. I would love to see it.
All right, so Michaels and Cole. So we'll give the list for if you were making a 3-match dream card. We would have done Michaels versus Styles, Brainbusters versus Revival, and then a little something for everybody, Lesnar versus Vader. But for the sake of our interview, we're going to do Shawn Michaels versus Adam Cole.
Yeah.
Who's the first to go from this?
It's a tag match for me.
Really?
Yeah, here's why. First of all, it's one of the best tag matches you could possibly have.
Yeah.
It's super exciting, and I probably currently like all those guys just as much as anybody. But at the end of the day, if we're going to do pinnacle dream matches, I would lean more towards a single match. I mean, I love tag wrestling. I don't think it gets the respect it deserves, especially from WWE. But at the end of the day, there is a difference in, like, what's the one thing you really want to see? You know, and I had to make a list. I'm not going to say it's the Rockers and the Bucks, even though that'd be fucking amazing. I'm going to tell you it's maybe Shawn Michaels and AJ Styles because that's the big fucking time feel.
So you think Michaels and Styles is on an equal level with Michaels and Cole?
Yes.
And they both deserve to go past the tag match?
They do. I know it's, we're getting redundant, but that's just my opinion.
I would actually take Michaels and Styles off the list if it were up to me.
Sure.
Just because you've got Michaels and Cole. To me, that's like the 1A match. I would look at Michaels and Styles as 1B.
And that's fine. And if you want to be different, then no matter what, HBK is getting out of his pocket.
Yeah.
So I guess let's argue this then. So you're saying, though, Michaels versus Styles.
I don't think that's as much of a matchup as Brainbusters versus Revival because...
But you don't think...
Cole versus Shawn Michaels, that's teacher-student.
The story.
And you've got the same idea with the Brainbusters that they've studied tag team wrestling, but they've patterned themselves after Arn Anderson and Tully Blanchard. So it's more of that tightly pulled in story.
And also, if we're going to do this like Michaels and Cole, one of the reasons why they're better than Michaels and Styles, in my opinion, I feel like Cole is just a much better heel. And that's where that match would probably end up going.
And there's a more direct influence. Like, I don't see the Michaels as much with Styles.
No.
And that's the only reason I would argue for the tag match over that, just because Michaels and Cole, that's solid. Guys, you can see why Naito would have gone to the top of the 5-3-1 the other week.
No, let's just say this too, and this is the problem.
Make one last push for Styles and Michaels, and if you can get me with it, then...
Well, hold on. I want to say this is also the problem with this list too. Sorry, Randy. It's recency
because it's
bias
apple and oranges?
too.
Yeah,
it's also reasonable. What has AJ done recently? AJ is one of the best wrestlers, but if he just came off a fucking hour, he got injured, but if he came off an hour-long impressive Royal Rumble performance and he killed it, we'd probably be like, oh, goddamn. Like, how do we not have Michaels and Styles?
Yeah.
So, but right now, Adam Cole's the hot ticket in our life, and Ian Anderson's in TV a little more. Revival's making some news. So, I don't know. So, I'm not going to make that push. I'm going to kick him right off.
I was going to say, you won me over. I'll take the tag match off.
Me and Joe are arguing to put the other one over right here.
But it does make sense because Styles hasn't been as hot lately. Cole has been. Mm-hmm. And that's why we're going to end the 5-3-1 right now and just pick Michaels versus Cole, because even though that argument won me over, you're comparing, and this is probably the best this has worked out for comparing apples to fucking apples.
You damn near killed him, Randy.
Shawn Michaels versus AJ Styles and Shawn Michaels versus Adam Cole.
You broke Joe, Randy. What the fuck?
Shawn Michaels versus Adam Cole is going to win it because...
I hope you got some editing skills.
Oh, yeah. A lot of this shit's coming out. So, guys, Michaels versus Cole won for the dream match. Get at us on Twitter. Get at us on YouTube. Find us in the comments. Subscribe to YouTube.
Yeah.
We're up to 14. We're
putting out a lot more material right now.
Oh, yeah. We're almost daily videos now. So, guys, find us where we're at, and we will see you next week. Thank you.
All right. Love you guys.
Guys, thank you for listening to the 531 here on YouTube this week. If you like what you hear, you can always find us on Anchor FM, Google Podcasts, Spotify, Breaker, Overcast, Pocket Cast, Radio Public, and on the Apple Podcast where you can subscribe and also give us a 5-star rating. We appreciate you listening. We want your feedback, 531, and if you agree with us, if you disagree with us, we also want you to let us know. And let us know what your 531 would be. Come up with a top 5 and let us know, and we'll tell you why you're wrong. And in order for us to do that, please contact us on Twitter. We're at Fans Working. Facebook page, Working Fans Wrestling Pod. Email workingfanswrestlingpod@gmail.com. It's very important that you actually contact us on these platforms because we want this to be your interactive place to talk wrestling.